So this was Anya arriving at her room in the nurse's home. Anya was on the last door next to the fire escape. A name tag in bold print was inserted into the brass holder beneath the Yale lock and key. Student nurse Anya Corrigan. Student nurse Anya Corrigan. Anya excitedly repeated under her breath. This was her name. This was her room. And this was her key. She never owned a key. There was always someone back at home to let Anya in. Even on nights out with her sister or Mary, her friend, her parents always waited up to make sure they arrived home safely. Due to the troubles, 11 o'clock curfews were enforced, unless it was an extra special occasion when, like Cinderella, they'd be given a midnight pass. These rules caused no amount of problems for her and Mary's budding romances. Freedom and a key were two things not compatible with Anya's 70s Belfast, but today she was about to have both. Anya turned the heavy Yale key with anticipation, nervous yet very excited as to what was on the other side. But disappointment overwhelmed her as she scanned quickly around her new abode. It was a small, cell-like space with old furniture crammed into every available space. It wasn't dark as the corridor outside, but it wasn't very bright either, and it had a smell similar to her neighbour the McCrories back home. A sash window overlooked a row of houses tightly packed together, their back bedroom window almost touching distance from hers. Gone was her view of the beautiful Black Mountain and Divis Mountain. Gone was her large attic, and in its place a small claustrophobic room and a small bed, and an old wooden wardrobe and an even older dressing table and sink. If she sat on the bed, she could reach all three at arm's length. Prizing herself and her case between the narrow gap, she sat on the bed and stared into the mirror. Anya took a deep breath and tried to divert the dismay that was now overwhelming her before it could reach her eyeballs. Tears she'd locked away just a few hours earlier when leaving her mummy and sister and little brother at home, and when leaving her daddy in the foyer downstairs, were now struggling to make an unwelcome appearance. Wiping her eyes and sighing, she lifted her case onto the bed and thought she'd better at least try to make the most of this, as this after all had been her decision to be here. But how many times did she need to keep telling herself this today before she would be convinced? Opening the wardrobe and dressing table drawer, a waft of rose water from thin pink lining paper filled the air. Maybe the room's previous owner was a fan of this, but Anya thought it better to give it a spray of her youth due before folding her clothes into tidy rows. Anya was obsessively tidy by nature, so on the plus side, having even a small room to herself was a bonus over sharing with her sister. Case quickly emptied of its sparse contents, she then opened the vanity case. Good luck cards and little gifts rested beside her two cherished possessions, her new fob watch and a small white bust statue of Our Lady. Last week her parents had taken her to a jeweller in town to pick this watch. Opening its box with its rich navy satin lining, she remembers how her mummy proudly kept telling the jeweller, "She's starting nursing next week. She'll be the first nurse in our family, so we're so proud of her, and she's going to be staying in the nurse's home across town." Anya remembered blushing as the jeweller congratulated her while polishing up the watch with his soft cloth. "I can engrave the back now for you, or you can wait till you know what you want inscribed." "Maybe the date you qualify as a staff nurse would be the perfect engraving," her mommy eagerly suggested. Now lifting it from its box, Anya really hoped she wouldn't let them down. The date she would qualify now seemed a very long way away. Wiping the tear that now rolled down her cheeks, she took the folded cheque out of her pocket. Running her fingers gently over her daddy's familiar handwriting, she refolded it before hiding it safely underneath the navy satin inset. This was for her rainy day. Clipping the watch back in place, she safely closed the box before slipping it under her pyjamas, and of course her Aunt Maureen's baby doll set. Another item, maybe for a rainy day, she smiled through the tears. Anya then removed the little white stone bust of Our Lady from her case. A few days earlier, Sister Peter, one of the McCrories, had asked Anya to call. The eldest of 3 sisters, she and her younger sister, Sister Alphonsus, had entered a religious order for nursing nuns many years ago. Thrilled to hear Anya was going to follow in their footsteps, she wanted to give her a small gift before she would leave. Anya had always been fascinated with these 2 ladies called men's names. She'd heard Peggy McCrory calling her sisters Bernadette and Nora out in the garden, but her mummy always referred to them as Sister Peter and Sister Alphonsus. Even more fascinating were the clothes they wore at home. Lace head caps would cover every strand of feminine hair, and large grey aprons over long white cotton dresses covered every other part of them. Sitting with her for an hour on Monday evening, Anya listened to her nursing stories in awe of things she had done and seen. Like her younger sister, she had spent most of her nursing career in Africa. Sister Alphonsus was still living in the convent in Botswana, but she'd been sent home to recuperate from a bout of malaria and then to take on the role of Mother Superior in Dublin. Sister Peter sounded sad that she would never be returning to Africa again, but nuns aren't asked what they want to do, they're told what to do. And Anya thought she would make a lovely Mother Superior, as she was so much kinder than any nun she had ever met. Leaving the sitting room for a few minutes, Sister Peter returned with a small parcel in her hand. These are to guide you safely through your nursing journey, and who knows, one day it may be a journey that takes you to Africa too. Who knows, said Anya, while thinking to herself, yeah, she might nurse in Africa someday, but it would most definitely not be as a nun. Nothing or no one, not even gentle Sister Peter, could make Anya Corrigan enter the Holy Orders. She shuddered as she remembered the many nights as a child she would hide under her bedclothes for fear the calling would come and take her. She was only 9 or 10 when the nuns used to tell her and her class that they might be chosen. She didn't want to be chosen, and she most certainly didn't want to marry God. So, thanking her for her gift, she gently unwrapped the fragile parcel, which contained a small religious bust and a beautiful set of pearl rosary beads. Anya had rosary beads at home from her first communion, but they were very childish compared to the heavy set she now held in her hand. Sister Peter said they'd both been blessed in Rome by Pope Paul VI, so they were very special. Thank you again, Sister Peter. I will take good care of them. And they will take good care of you, she said. Holding her gift, Anya shook Sister Peter's hand. Nobody ever hugs nuns, even when they were your next door neighbour. Homesickness was now engulfing Anya as she positioned the little statue on her dressing table. Anya Corrigan, how would you ever reach Botswana if you can't even reach the Lisburn Road? So that was my first event. So yeah, it does get better, and I don't get as homesick, at least not all of the time. So yes, that's why I thought those two things they've gone with me through life. So they've got me this far, and I think she did lose a little nose when my youngest was 2. My firstborn was 2, and she dropped her off the dressing table, and her wee nose has never been right since. But she has got me through a lot. She goes with me everywhere. So that's, as I say, that book. Well, I'll give you a bit of the, I think, quickly go through just in this part of the Angel book, it's more the travel bits. I was going to Africa finally got to Africa to nurse. I didn't want to go when I was qualified, but my mum wouldn't let me because at that time there were killing an awful lot of missionaries in 78, 79. So it's funny, you can live on the Crumlin Road and be slaughtered walking across the street, but you can't go to Africa in case they kill you. But yeah, so I eventually got in 2006. So this was me. On my first long haul, I learnt a lot of do's and don'ts. Don't wear big lace-up boots, for that may cause an irate queue behind you at security as you try to get your pudding feet out of them at the flight changeover, having gained half a stone on the previous flight. Don't take off same boots on second flight, as you'll have to walk off the plane barefoot when your feet, now weighing a stone, will never go back into your size 3s. Don't pick an in-flight movie when you spend 2 hours laughing or crying out loud, forgetting you're the only one tuned into it. Don't drink too much coffee when you're at a window seat, as it creates a huge annoyance to your fellow travellers as you clamber over them for the umpteenth time. And don't leave Dublin dressed for Africa, as the plane is quite cold during the night and the ultra-thin blanket given in economy does nothing to ward off hypothermia. But do enjoy every minute. The plane was quiet now, but I couldn't sleep. Too much nervous excitement and possibly too many coffees. So I watched as a tiny symbol of our plane followed the line on the monitor over the vastness that was Africa. I looked out my window into a clear, dark, navy sky lit up by a million stars, and I wondered how the mothers of Darfur below, displaced from their homes, were keeping their babies warm under this cold night air. At that moment, I thought of my own 6, now tucked up in bed, and I shed a tear. It would be 4 long weeks till I could wrap them in a hug, but maybe I would come back to them a happier mummy. So I blew a small kiss out the window, hopefully in the direction of home, and hoped it would land safely on their cheeks for now. 14 hours later, with my rucksack claimed, I headed to the exit, and there to my delight stood my brother with a bouquet of flowers. And in that moment, I knew this would be a good journey. 1 hour in his truck later, we arrived at the township. I'd seen many pictures taken by him and others, but nothing prepared me for Attridgeville. It was a small, dusty corner of Africa, filled to overflowing with possibly 1 million people, though no one had ever taken the time to count them. This was the home of many families that had been uprooted from the cities in the days of apartheid and abandoned well out of sight of white South Africa. Homes constructed mainly of tin and poor ground, with no water, no sanitation and no electricity, was the norm for most. But these people were proud of their little corner, and during my stay, I would watch from my bedroom in the hospice as the women swept the orange soil in front of their homes with a bunch of long twigs. They would hang whiter than whitewashing out to dry in the heat of the morning sun, having first washed it in basins of water collected from a large green drum located throughout the township. Though not all properties were of such poor construction, we drove through a small area where people in the new Mandela area were building better homes, some with water, sanitation and electric. Most had lived in the township for almost 50 years. They didn't need to go back and reclaim their cities. This was their piece of Africa. So, as I say, a flavour of all of them. This is more like a diary of travelling, and again, this was me going through my getting through Dublin Airport minus all my children. So Dublin Airport was thronging with people, all shapes, all sizes, all colours. Cases, rucksacks, Gucci bags carried their wheeled past me as I located the departures notice board, never being able to make out the announcements of flight do is boarding for do. Biarritz wasn't flashing. Advised by the same board to shop, I declined as my 5 kilograms had reached its target weight with the addition of 1 long sundress, an item I would keep for Santiago. Dress was light, but the pretty sandals required to join this ensemble brought me to the grand total of 5.6 kilograms. So instead of skipping quickly through the shopping mall, I made my way to the dreaded snake, airport security. It had now killed the fun of travel. A long winding queue shuffled ahead of me. Families ready for sandcastles and sunshine, hen parties adorning angel wings, halos, bunny ears and pom-pom tails, ready for foam parties and suntans, and stag groups ready for anything, sporting I'm the groom's best friend t-shirts, with sex on the beach emblazoned across their chests, was not a reference to the cocktail, I'm sure. Patiently we waited our turn. Nearing the conveyor belt and basket, I could feel my anxiety levels rise. Travelling with only hand luggage, my 2 clear plastic bags were full to bursting with miniature toiletries. If this lot found themselves confiscated into the big bin, I anticipated spending my 27 days even dirtier than originally planned. and I knew no amount of pleading and smiling would work. Close to traffic wardens, many security personnel are ruthless in their pursuit of their job. A few years ago I lost a very expensive new lip gloss to a bin in Liverpool because I failed to have it in a plastic bag. I was so tearful, having just deposited my baby son at his first year halls. I felt in no mood to protest, thinking, well, they've confiscated my baby Pearl, so they may as well confiscate my stupid lip gloss too. My turn finally arrived. I timidly set my mini chemist shop into the basket. I was rumbled. You're only allowed one bag and it has to close, was spoken in my direction by a very sweet, unintimidated southern accent. He gave me a security pardon. Relaxing, I endeavoured to stretch the plastic of one bag to its limit with the content of the second. And then my brogue gent was called over by the other security staff, who were all examining my rucksack intently in the scanner. Relaxation abruptly ended. I was now beginning to feel like an Irish terrorist as passengers behind me and to the side strained to see who, why, or what was causing their delay. Call back. I could feel all eyes burning into me, my face flushing up. Now, no longer anxious about my two clear bags slipping in my sweaty palms, I thought, if I was allowed one call, who should I ring? To make matters worse, as I walked back through the body scanner, it decided to beat frantically due to my jewellery and bits and bobs that I'd just replaced. Could I have drawn any more attention to myself? Well, maybe bunny ears and pom-poms might have completed my embarrassment. I was about to be questioned about my 5.6 kilogram purple osprey. Not a great start for my least favourite colour. Why? Was it Google said it's good for? Peace, tranquility, calm. It calms overactivity and removes obstacles. Well, basically, my rucksack of the same colour was now the major obstacle causing mayhem and holding up half of Dublin Airport. The culprit, my 500 pennies. So tightly packed, they probably resembled a bomb of some description. Explained as to their purpose, 5 security men burst into laughter and good wishes for my journey. One saying, now don't be going all the way back to pick them all up again, as I made a run for its departure gate with now little or no time to spare, not even for my usual borrowed spray of cool water from duty free. So far my Camino had been memorable for all the wrong reasons. I'd missed the bus, a possible rucksack bomb, and nearly a missed plane because of the missed bus and the possible rucksack bomb. So now, 30,000 feet in the air, closing my eyes for a catnap, I smiled and thought to myself, well, things can only get better. So that's what I do in my spare time. So it is. So anybody want to ask me anything, or you just want me to shut up?
When you were talking about the motorbike or whatever.
Yes, yes.
Then you had made one of the comments about coming down past here, the motorbike.
Yes.
That's where that came from?
Yes. I was saying earlier to this girl that when I was a student nurse, I had a motorbike and I used to park it at the nurse's home. And I had a talk in Creagh just a couple of weeks after the book came out. And this girl came, my God, she came all the way from Bangor to go to Creagh to the talk, and she says, I knew I recognised you as soon as I walked in the door. I thought, why do I know her? She says, Nana came to me, you sold me your motorbike. And she says, I used to take her up and down outside the nurse's home till she practised on my motorbike. And she says, but you wouldn't believe it, she said. As soon, about 2 to 3 weeks after she bought it, they stole it from outside the nurse's home. And she says, and I hadn't even finished paying you for it. She says, but I didn't like to tell you. So she kept paying me, and her bike was gone. And I think it was found in bits somewhere along Sandy Row. But yes, in the book, I used to take the motorbike down to Downpatrick because friends of mine, we were in a bomb in Newcastle, and it was slaved honoured, and my friends were basically on fire, and so they got a lot of treatment, but they were in the Down hospital when the Down was still open, and it was a beautiful hospital. So I used to get out of my nurse's uniform, and 5 o'clock in the evening I'd get myself through Crossgar, through Saintfield, and all the way to the Down, visit my friends, and then make it back, except the one night I ran out of petrol. I'd carried off and I hadn't a clue because it was quite late, and I just sat there on the verge and so I wanted to cry. So I did, until actually my aunt happened upon me, and I thought, how'd she know I was here? But I think it turned out that for the first while that I had the bike, they didn't trust me. So they used to follow me. I had these stalkers that I didn't even know. And yet it just, I thought, how coincidental in this country road that you just turned up. So off they went and got me petrol, and as I say, Marion would be something she would do. So yeah, I had a few kind of crises on that wee bike, but it was, it left it quite a run up and down from Belfast to Downpatrick many times. So yeah, it made the book. So
Your first book, Caroline, took me through my darkest days whenever I was coming through breast cancer. So I wanted to come here tonight to just say thank you. You made a huge difference to my life. And reaching out to me as you did over social media when you seen me reading your book on TV, that was huge, because nobody gets it.
I know.
Until they get it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
We all, as a nurse, I always used to think, you get it. You know, you're dealing with this all the time. But you're right, until you've walked in those moccasins, you don't get it, you know, until you've been on that journey. And I mean, thank you very much. You know, and I'm just, if there was one thing that book did, it was the people who said it had touched them. That was priceless to me. But he came in to me to ask me to sign the book. And I says, I'd be honoured. And he says, wee girl, if you can do that, I can do it. He says, as soon as I read your book, he says, I went, got my hair cut, got my beard, all cleaned up, and I thought, no, she can do it, so can I. And he says, you gave me my life back. Well, do you see, to be honest, that was me finished. I didn't need any more, because what he said to me, just enough. You know, that was all I needed. And he even said that any time he felt like he was going to be a bit low, he always lifted it. And he says, sent the black cloud away. And I said to him, could I quote you? And I invited him to my second book launch then for the Camino. And I said, would you mind if I... He says, I'd be honoured. So again, I'm honoured that you've said that. Thank you.
Well, because of you, I started a cancer support group in Creagh, and we're into our 3rd year now.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well done. Well done. Yeah, because it's like a trickle. It's a trickle down, you know. I mean, there are times we don't want to be positive, but I was like the cancer banner nurse. You know, every patient used to come in and say to me, look how well you're doing. And, you know, because they thought, you've done it, you've been there, you know what it's like. And some maybe days you just were a bit frightened and you were a little bit scared yourself, but you always had the smile, because you knew that from these people looked to you for that positivity. And if I went under, then they lost hope. So, you know, not only with the book, but it was the whole journey of your cancer. You have to be positive. You have to give people hope. And there was days sometimes you just didn't really want to, but somehow people made it worthwhile, and people like yourself, you know, that maybe just those few words is sometimes all that people need to lift them out of a dark day or a dark moment. So hopefully, if that is all I've achieved by my writing, and that my children are proud, then job done. Job done. I'll be. I'll do a happy woman. So, but thank you for that comment. That was lovely. So I think then there's a wee cup of tea for everybody. I think, isn't that right? Or am I taking everybody home for a cup of tea? Guy's the only one that's near. He could come. So, but again, like, thank you very, very much for coming. And there's a few books if you want to buy some. I think most people already have them. But if there's any of the other ones you are interested in there, by all means. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you.